And we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so the recording has begun. I want to share a PowerPoint with you now. As you can see, this is the Rhode Island Ad Hoc Committee. It's 6:07, we're starting our meeting. This is a Zoom meeting, and I'll be explaining to you how this is going to go. As I mentioned earlier, here's the agenda. We're going to start off with introductions. Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background. We'll talk about what the commission does. We have a board of commissioners. We'll talk about those roles and responsibilities. We'll talk about the purpose of this ad hoc committee. I'll share our mission statement as well as our vision statement. We also have guiding principles, and I'll explain those. And then at the very end of that, I'll talk about the Open Meetings Act and a review of what that entails. Our goal is to have an ad hoc committee, and I want you to understand what that is. The composition of our membership is important. And so we wanted to identify, once we have you all assembled now, we want to have a chairperson, which is actually required, someone who will run the meeting. We'll also need a note taker, someone who will keep track of the minutes. We want you to identify future dates and times that you'd like to meet, and you can vote on those amongst yourselves. I won't influence that in any way. And then ideas and issues for this ad hoc committee. We'd like to hear from you. What thoughts do you have? What would you like to talk about? What things have you identified? And we'll vote on those. And then we'll talk about our agenda for the next meeting. And that'll be up to you completely. We have 2 hours from 6 to 8. So we want to move right along and make sure to accomplish all of that. First of all, I'd like to hear from you. Who are you? Tell us a little bit about your background. We have 7 people. So I'm going to go ahead and call on Drew Balsley first. If you could introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background. We'd appreciate that. Hang on, Drew. We're going to spotlight you. I'm going to pin. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Drew. This is my name sign. And I just joined this committee for RICDHH maybe 3 months ago now.
I've just become a commissioner.
Oh, excuse me. I've been a commissioner for 3 months. I work in mental health at the Walden School, and I'm also involved in, I'm a member of the community who uses interpreter services. So I'm very happy to be here and work with you. Thank you, Drew. Okay, next I'd like to hear from Talia, please. Talia Jackson. Hi, everybody. I am Talia Jackson. I'm in graduate school right now. I'm in the School of Social Work at the master's level. I've been in Rhode Island for about 3 years, and I've interested in learning about deaf services here in Rhode Island. Thank you for joining us, Talia. Okay, how about Anne McDonald? Please introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background about you, Anne.
I've asked Anne to start her video, so we'll just wait for her to start.
Hi there, my name is Anne McDonald. I'm from Rhode Island. and I represent the Hearing Loss Association. And tell us a little bit about your background. Oh, sure. I work for the state. I'm a legal librarian. I use interpreters.
Your hands are a little off screen, Anne.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Oh, I apologize. Yeah, I work at the state courts as a librarian, as I said earlier. Okay, Anne, thank you very much. Nice to meet you, Anne. Okay, let's see, who are we missing? How about Amy? Can you introduce yourself? Tell us about your background. Hi, everybody. My name is Amy Slezak. I was born here in Rhode Island and raised here as well. I was raised as a deaf oral person, but I've since learned to sign since I've been 17 years old. I use interpreter services in Rhode Island. I work as a victim's advocate at Tri-County, and we actually hire a lot of interpreters for the work that we do with our clients. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Thanks for joining us. Let's see, next up. Jen Maloney, please. Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Maloney. I'm here representing Rhode Island Association of the Deaf. I'm the treasurer. And I'm also a CODA. And I'm one of the co-owners of Partners Interpreting. I've lived in Rhode Island for almost 30 years now. Thank you. Thanks, Jen. Thanks for joining our committee. Okay, did I miss anything? All right. Next, Rain Depakote. If you could introduce yourself and tell us about your background. Okay, I'm going to ignore that screen. My name is Rain Depakote. I'm a certified interpreter. I live here in Rhode Island, and I've been here, I believe it's over a year now, finally. I'm a freelance interpreter, and I do other contract jobs as well. Also, I'm representing RID. And that's it. Thank you, Rain. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And last but not least, we have Tina Nelson. Tina, if you could talk about yourself and your background, we'd love to hear from you. Sure, I'm going to go ahead and speak. Just turn on your
My
microphone.
first language, if I can turn on my mic. Okay, I am Tina Nelson. I am a commissioner on the Rhode Island Commission on the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. I serve in a hearing role there. I've only been with the commission about a year. I am a freelance interpreter in Rhode Island. I only work in Rhode Island. I haven't worked outside the state since I moved here 6 years ago. And I am also the treasurer of RID, but I am not here in that role. I'm here as a commissioner in that role.
Very good. Thank you, Tina. Now, I'd like to introduce Holly St. Pierre, our interpreter referral coordinator. And Holly, I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
My internet connection's bad. Okay. So I'm Holly St. Pierre, the interpreter referral coordinator at the Rhode Island Commission on the Deaf. I've been there for almost 9 years now. I, prior to that, worked at the Corliss Institute in Warren for 3 years in admin. So I've been servicing the community here for 9, 10, 11, about 12 years now. So
Thanks, Holly. And last, but again, not least, we have Bethany Link. She's our program coordinator. Bethany, if you could introduce yourself and a little bit about your background.
My name is Bethany Lank. I have been a contract project coordinator for Rhode Island Commission on the Deaf and Hard of Hearing for the past 2 and about half years. I primarily assist with the interpreter referral service. And other than that, I also do various projects for all the departments in the commission.
And you handle Zoom for us, and you've been doing a fantastic job.
I
Thank you.
appreciate your patience with how I handle Zoom.
Thanks, Bethany. So, great to meet all of you. I appreciate your introductions and learning about your background. So now we know who's here. We have 7 people. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint and talk to you a little bit about the agenda, what tonight is going to look like, and what you can expect from this ad hoc committee. Okay. I'll give you a brief background about the Commission on the Deaf and Hard of Hearing here in Rhode Island. We're an independent agency and we follow certain mandates. We've been around since 1977. And the organization was restructured in 1992. So we have no affiliation with any other agency. We're wholly independent. We report directly to the governor. And that's what gives us our independence. Typically, we focus on 4 different areas: interpreter referral and CART referral, that's one area; information and referral services; emergency communication program; and we do a needs assessment. So there are 4 different areas that we focus on that impact the deaf community. So that's the 4 basic roles that we cover here in the community. You might wonder exactly what our commissioners do and what that process looks like. We have 11 commissioners. They are selected by the governor. We don't independently choose them, but we do nominate qualified individuals to the governor. And we have 11 seats. Actually, there are 13 seats, but 2 of them are for legislators. One is for a senator and one is for someone from the House of Representatives. So there are 13 seats technically, but there are 11 seats that the community can see and interact with. As the executive director, I report to the Board of Commissioners. My staff does not report to them, but I do. And then the staff reports to me. So I take care of the everyday running of the commission, and then I interact with the Board of Commissioners for my goals. I directly report to them. They don't run my staff for me. I take care of that. That's my responsibility. Now, we have 5 seats that are for deaf commissioners. 3 are for people who use American Sign Language. 2 are for people who don't sign. It could be a deaf person who speaks and reads lips. We have hard of hearing seats, and there are 3 of those. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to say this again. 5 seats for deaf people who use ASL or some sign language, so whatever type of sign language. Then we have the 3 hard of hearing seats. Those are for people who do not use sign language. Again, they may be lip readers, they generally speak for themselves. Then we have 1 hearing seat. And we have a seat for a person who is deaf and does not, or excuse me, we have 1 seat for a person who's deaf and does not know ASL. This is a person who could be an advocate for the deaf or hard of hearing community. And then we have 2 hearing seats. That's 9, we have 9 commissioners right now. We're still looking for 2 more commissioners. We need deaf people to fill those seats. Then we'll have the full complement of 11 commissioners. But as I said, we have 9 right now.
We could switch interpreters.
Okay. Ernest is waiting for you, Joan.
Oh, can you see me? I'm sorry. Thank you. So Ernest is saying you can see the chart for the organization here. You can see that the commission, the board of commissioners is at the top. And then I'm the executive director, so I'm under the board. And then we have the staff. We have 3 full-time people. We have interpreter referral statewide. That also does interpreter and cart referral. We have EPCAP, which is the communication access, and we have the program manager. We also have some people that we use on contract, and you can see there at the bottom. Just to get a sense of what our organizational chart looks like. I'm going to remove myself from the screen so that you can see the slide clearly. Okay, so you get a sense of what the organizational chart looks like. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the role of the ad hoc committee. We have to follow Rhode Island general laws. That's section 23-1.8-3, establishment of ad hoc committees. And you could collect information, statistics, data, and report it to the commissioners. You do not report to me as the executive director. You would come to, let's say, the next commission meeting and bring forward things that updates and other kinds of information. They would listen to the committee's reports. And then hopefully we would work together on improving interpreter referral and interpreting services in the state. So we're going to be identifying issues and challenges and seeking viable and innovative solutions at the statewide systematic level. So once we identify some of the issues in the state with interpreter referral and interpreter services, we want to think statewide, system-wide, how we can make changes to address the needs that appear. We're going to be able to make recommendations to the Board of Commissioners. So the ad hoc committee would not make decisions on their own. The commissioners would have to take action. There could be an example, let's say systemic or policy change, legislation, or other activities that would help improve or make more efficient or give opportunities. So those would be reported back to the commission, and there would be a vote on how we could change certain things based on the ad hoc committee's observations and recommendations to improve the interpreter referral service. So your partnership and your collaboration will be awesome for us. We really value your input, your thoughts, your feedback, things that you have experienced out in the community. We need to hear from you because we want to be able to make changes that improve the situation. We don't want people struggling and suffering with things that are a disservice. So we'll think about the community as a whole, the best quality of interpreting services. Obviously, you can't get to perfect, but we do identify certain issues that need to be resolved and then move forward, making things better, using your feedback, your thoughts, your experience, your knowledge, your backgrounds to make the interpretive referral service effective and successful in the future, to cut down on complaints and barriers, to make the service provision as smooth as possible. That's what the ad hoc committee purpose is. Next slide, please. So this is our mission statement, the Rhode Island Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. It says to provide innovative leadership in public policy, advocacy, service delivery, and accessibility throughout the Ocean State. RICDHH ensures opportunities for every deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing person to become an empowered and contributing Rhode Island citizen. That's the mission statement. Next slide. This is our vision statement. So mission are goals and vision informs our goals. So this says the Rhode Island Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing aspires to be recognized as the central resource and advocate for the deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing citizens in Rhode Island. That's the vision statement. Our guiding principles, we have 3: communication, opportunity, and equality. Communication is to ensure that all of Rhode Island deaf and hard of hearing citizens have full access to public audio and visual information and communicating through sign language interpreter services, captioning, and technology. That's communication. And we want to make sure to ensure access and have no barriers for anybody. Opportunity to create new opportunities through advocacy and policy, education, employment, and legislation for all Rhode Island deaf and hard of hearing citizens. So to think about creating opportunities to help with education, employment, advocacy, so that deaf people are equal citizens to non-deaf. We don't want to have people being second-class citizens or marginalized. Third, equality, to promote equality in the communities and society for all Rhode Island deaf and hard of hearing citizens. Equality, so that people are treated the same and given the same opportunities and the same rights and responsibilities. Next slide. The Open Meeting Act, OMA. It says a committee or any public body is required to file the meeting agenda or notice with the Secretary of State 48 hours prior to each meeting. If the meeting is not filed 48 hours prior, the meeting then cannot be held. We would need to cancel. And that's very important for the chair of this committee. Let's say you want to have a meeting on a Wednesday. We need to be able to send the person who's responsible for posting, Pamela Zellner, the program manager at the commission, the office, or me, myself. So you would have to tell us when the meeting is coming up, next Wednesday, 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. You would have to send that the Friday prior or Monday at the latest by close of business at 4 o'clock. Because otherwise, if you're meeting after 4 and we get it Monday before 4, it's 48 hours prior. But we close at 4 o'clock. And if we haven't gotten it by then it's Tuesday and you're not within the 48-hour window. You're outside of that window. So therefore, we'd have to cancel the meeting. It has to be prior to 48 hours. You would send the meeting agenda, let's say on Tuesday. You know that the meeting is going to be on Thursday. So again, at 4 o'clock, the meeting is going to be after 4. So prior to 4 o'clock on Tuesday, you would send the agenda. We count business days, not weekends. So Monday through Friday. We open at 9 a.m. and we close at 4. So it has to be within that window. We can't accept something after 4 o'clock, even though it's the same day of the week, it's the same calendar date, but it's after the close of business. So when you are setting up meetings, you have to think about that. You have to think that the date is enough in advance that you can give, that the date is enough in the future that you can give advance notice 48 hours before. So if it's going to be Wednesday, we need to know by the Friday prior or that Monday before the close of business. You have to think about the 48 hours and not count the weekend. And if it does not fall within those regs, then we need to cancel the meeting. We should include the date, time, and location of the meeting and any agenda items that you're going to be discussing so that the community knows what the topics are. So it says statement specifying the nature of the business to be discussed. That has to be in the notice. And you would have, we're going to discuss these items. We're going to vote on these items. What the goal of the meeting was to make sure that it's covered in the agenda. You can't be coming in on Wednesday night, let's say at the meeting, and adding agenda items that haven't been advertised 48 hours prior. If the ad hoc committee knows what their next meeting is about, the secretary should address that and then give it to the chairperson to be approved and send it on to the commission, to either Pamela or myself. And then we post that information statewide. And again, post it with the agenda so that people in the public know that the meeting is occurring and also know what is happening at that meeting. The reason the open meetings law is required is because it needs to be available to the public. They have the right to know because we are an agency of the government. They want to know what is being discussed, and that has to be transparent. They can come to the meeting, they can observe. All open meetings are allowed to have public at them, and they can observe. We do have the right to have certain parts of the meeting not have the public be making comments. The ad hoc committee can make a decision to conduct their own business and discuss certain items without the public interrupting, but they do have the right to observe. Now, the secretary will be writing minutes out, which will be approved by the chairperson of the committee. It should be within 35 days of the meeting or at the next meeting, whichever is the earlier. So the minutes of your meeting, after you meet, you cannot hold them for months without submitting them to us. We read them and review them, and then we upload them. Then people have access to that. They can go on the website and see what the ad hoc committee is discussing. They can see what the minutes are. It's very important to have the minutes of the meeting in a timely manner so that the public is informed. So the two items that need to happen are the agenda prior to and the minutes within 35 days after. If you met, let's say today, and you wrote up the minutes, you would want to review them and then send them to us. And then we send them on to be approved and posted. And when you know when your next meeting is, you would tell us. And again, we would pass that information on so it gets posted 48 hours in advance. Once we know that and it's posted, it's approved to go forward. The meeting minutes, again, need to include the date, time, and location of the meeting, the members of the organization who are present or absent, that needs to be recorded, a record of consensus or votes, if somebody abstained from voting or voted in opposition, and any other relevant information or requests must be included. So if you have a meeting minutes, it doesn't have to be a verbatim account of what happened. It can be a summary with the main points, the bullet points. If there's something that you're not sure how to type up, you can talk to, you can get the transcript from the captioner, and you can look at that as a template or to help you remind yourself of what the meeting is. The transcript is for your eyes only, so the captioned record of the meeting can't be made public. People from outside cannot say, oh, I'd like to see the transcript from the CART reporter. What they do have access to is the minutes of your meeting, not the transcript of the CART reporter. If somebody asks that, you do not supply it. You do not need to supply it. The transcript is for your eyes only as a way to refresh your memory about the meeting to help you develop your minutes. So I just wanted to clarify the minutes versus the transcript of the meeting from the CART reporter. So the other thing is why you would be meeting to talk about interpreter referral services, what this committee will actually be doing. And there are areas that you'll be discussing. One is to give feedback about referral services, to identify areas to improve the quality of interpreter referral services. You'll be analyzing the services that we have and giving feedback about what could be improved. The committee will develop procedures for quality control and resolve issues
with the current staff.
With the current staff. They update the policies and procedures to ensure the continuity of quality services with the current staff, and develop procedures for quality control and resolving issues accessible to consumers and providers. And then, as I stated, they identify the gaps and challenges for the CDHH for the commission to address. A timeline for this ad hoc committee. It needs to be limited. It can be 6 months to a year. It cannot continue to meet as an ad hoc committee for 3 or 4 years. This needs to be something that is addressed in the immediate time period, so 6 months to a year. It's to look at issues that need to be remediated in a very short time period. If there's a failure to do so, you could ask to be reapproved or extended for a longer period, another 6 months to a year, and that could be approved, but you should think that your time is basically 6 months to a year because you do not know if it's going to be approved for a second period. So moving on, the scope of work. So once you identify some of the areas that you're going to be working on, the committee will be discussing creating a flowchart of the operational steps related to requesting and assigning appropriate and qualified interpreters and CART providers. Second point is identify and create a census of all interpreters and CART providers who are licensed and willing to work in Rhode Island. And third, gather feedback and solicit advice from diverse consumers, interpreters, CART providers, advocacy organizations, and other agencies and referral services. So you can collect information, data, feedback, advice about how the service could be improved. Next slide, please. Also, you'll be reviewing and making specific recommendations related to policy and procedure. We have already set policies and procedures, but you can recommend certain edits or changes to that. And then if the commissioners so approve, those changes could become effective and formal. So based on your observations and your feedback, we could make those changes. Second, here is develop materials in ASL and English that are accessible to consumers to understand the process, including how to file a complaint and resolve issues. This is, I've noticed that a lot of times interpreters and consumers, there'll be, somebody will make a request and they might say to one of our staff at the commission, we're not happy with this interpreter, but they haven't followed the steps that we need to have them file an official grievance. They might just speak to us verbally and there's nothing written down, there's nothing recorded. So we need to have a complaint process or grievance process where we receive it, we document it, we think about what amelioration is required, and then find out if it has actually been resolved or not. Then we could actually have statistics about how many issues have been resolved and how many issues have not been resolved. And we would report that back to the commission, because otherwise everything is just kind of hearsay, basically. And those complaints would continue, and it builds a lot of frustration. It creates a lot of anxiety for people. And a lot of times people are so upset and pent up that it'll blow up later in a way that might be not appropriate. We want to make sure that these things are documented and addressed so that they can be corrected. And then report back that it's been resolved or it has not been resolved. Then there would be follow-up going back to the person who filed the complaint and say, we have taken action. We have talked to that interpreter. We've addressed your concerns. And if that is not satisfactory, we want to document that as well. So if the complaint was filed against a specific interpreter and the interpreter does not change, then there should be additional steps. Because we want consumers to understand that we are taking action, that we have spoken to the interpreter and the interpreter has not done what we've asked. If there's no documentation, there's no proof of that, and it looks like it's all verbal and informal. So we would go back to the original complainant and say, we have addressed this. And if this occurs again, thank you for letting us know, and we'll try to resolve it. Just so that people are aware of what steps we've already taken, that we have done a follow-up on their complaint, and that we're not overlooking anything or just ignoring the complaints. We know that these complaints are happening, and if the situation persists, we need to then address that. Those are our expectations of the ad hoc committee, that you will develop a grievance procedure so that everything is transparent and documented. And that form would then be available from then on to be able to track the statistics and find out if a complaint was satisfactorily addressed or not. And then how could we improve in that specific area? That's key. We need documentation about that so that we can make the interpreter referral service better and the quality and provision of interpreters as well. That's what we expect from the ad hoc committee. So we can move on. We'll switch interpreters.
Okay. Now, I mentioned that we have 7 members, and there are certain criteria. They're representing, or you will be representing, the Rhode Island. We have people from the Rhode Island Association of the Deaf, excuse me. We have someone representing the interpreters for the deaf in Rhode Island, as well as the Hearing Loss Association of America, at least one commissioner, at least one consumer who is deaf, at least one consumer who is hard of hearing, and at least one interpreter who is licensed and works in Rhode Island. So that's the composition of our committee, and we have satisfied that completely. We've met all those criteria. Next slide. Ex officio members. You might wonder who that is. I, as the executive director, am considered an ex officio member. Our interpreter referral specialists will also be ex officio members. They can't vote, they can't be involved in the discussion, but they can listen to the conversation. And that you will be allowed to discuss freely whatever topics you've come up with. If you need any kind of inside information, we can supply that information for you, depending on what you need. If you need statistics or any type of information that we have, we'll be happy to share that information. But again, we can't vote. We can't be involved in the discussion. All we can do is listen. And if you need to ask a question about how things are done, we can give you an answer for your discussion. So that's a limited role that we have. We're there to be helpful. You know, since I work in the commission, I know answers to some of the questions you might have, and so does Holly. So it'll be up to you to come up with what you're going to be discussing. And again, the ex officio members will not get involved in your discussions in any deep way, nor will we vote. We'll just listen and be helpful where needed. So there are two of us. Actually, it's Bethany will most likely and be a third ex officio member along with Holly and myself. So officially we have two, but we do have Bethany as well. At this point, does anyone have any questions about what I've talked about in the PowerPoint so far? Feel free to raise your hand and ask your question, or you can type it into the chat if you prefer to communicate that way. Okay. And you're welcome to comment by opening your video if you want. Any questions at all? This is your time. Okay, I don't see any questions. I don't see anything in the chat.
Rain has a comment. She should be able to open her video right now. Okay, hold on one moment, please.
No problem, Bethany. Thank you.
Give me 1 second. It's not giving the option for her to.
No worries. Actually, it says it can't be opened. All right, I see what you're saying. I'm getting the same message. Any luck, Bethany?
I am still trying to fix this issue. If you can give me 1 second, please.
Oh, okay, that's funny. We've never had this happen. Actually, I have a question for you. Can we get a copy of the interpreter? Oh, Tina asked if we could get a copy of the interpreter referral policies and procedures. We have it on our website, but I'm more than happy to make a copy and send that to all of you. And we do have an updated policy and procedure document we've been working on with RIRID and RIAD. And so I'll send you what we've been working on with them as well. You'll get those and you can review them both. And I see another chat. Yeah, we'll send those to you directly to your email. Are there any other questions? I can sign the questions if you just type them into chat. I'd be happy to do it that way until we can resolve this. Bethany, are you still trying to get that thing to open?
I'm still trying to get it to open. I apologize. It may take me a minute or two. I don't know why it's done this. So one moment.
Huh, okay. This is really strange. I want to move along. I'm sorry about this problem. We do have a PowerPoint that I've mostly gotten through. Let me just check that. Okay. So it would be a good time right now if we could identify a chairperson and a secretary. I'd like to know who would be interested in chairing this committee, this ad hoc committee, and who would be willing to take notes for this ad hoc committee. So we do need 2 people before we can move forward with any work. So I'd love to see who's interested, who wouldn't mind being the chair and who wouldn't mind being the secretary. And we can take advantage of this little delay right now to go ahead and determine that. And then we can talk about some goals. Hi, Bethany. Hang on one sec. Yeah.
So unfortunately, all right, can you try again right now, Rain?
It worked.
Okay. Oh, I apologize. I am not sure why that happened. Please continue.
Okay, great. Please go ahead, Rain. Okay.
Lordy. Okay. There we go. Go ahead. I apologize.
Okay, yeah, the screen moved around a little bit. Everyone's picture moved. So firstly, I think it's important before we go ahead and talk about the committee itself to talk about some communication protocols. So far, we haven't really been able to talk about that. So I think that should be a priority. The whole, and also the ex officio members, like they're not involved in the discussion, meaning that we would need to discuss the best way to have communication access for one another. Like just now, I wasn't able to open my screen, and you know, it wouldn't have been accessible to everyone
If I were typing in the
if I
chat.
were typing. So I'm not a great type. I'm not comfortable typing. I would prefer to, create access by signing for myself. So I want to make sure that the communication access is set up. And people can talk about how they want to be run it, how they feel the most safe, the most comfortable, and how they prefer to communicate. So that needs to be number one. Also, I was chatted in the very beginning, and I got your picture, but I couldn't.
When the slideshow was happening,
Oh,
I couldn't really see you with the virtual background of the slide.
yeah, because I'm very photosensitive. It could cause a problem. It could cause a seizure. So also you were kind of cut off, Ernest. So it was a little hard to read you. I wasn't really able to look at the PowerPoint. I had to turn it off. And the light was really distracting. I actually had to look away. So far, it hasn't been accessible for me, this meeting. So for me, I want to really talk and really connect. I definitely don't want to sit back and listen as much. So I just wanted to give that feedback. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, okay, I understand what you're saying. I apologize for that. And I could certainly email the PowerPoint to you directly, so at least you'll know what it says. For training purposes, I felt it was necessary, but I apologize that the communication wasn't accessible for you. And now I will send it to you. I won't use it, at least the way I was using it. The only purpose was orientation so that people understood some of the basic rules. I felt the training was necessary so that when you go ahead and vote and select your chairperson and secretary, that you'd have a clearer idea of what to do, what the must-haves are in terms of running the meeting legally. That was my intention, but I will send it to you. Thank you. I appreciate you sending it to me because I wasn't able to look at it. In the future, yeah, it'd be better if it were, I know I'm not the only one. A lot of people have trouble reading the signs that are embedded in this PowerPoint. So that's just a friendly reminder. Another thing is, as far as the voting, I think we should talk about the communication issue first as a committee. People may disagree with me, and that's fine, but I think talking about how we're going to communicate, making sure everyone is in agreement, and then we could do the voting afterward, because none of us have really seen each other. We don't really know each other. It may be tricky to vote on things where some people are feeling a little bit lost. So I would like to prioritize communication. Thank you, Rain. Thank you for bringing that up. This is a good start, and I appreciate that for this discussion. You make good points. Also, I do want to emphasize that right now, I need a chairperson and secretary. That's critical. But talking about the best means of communication before, and then voting on that. And also, I do need to know when the next meeting is so that I can post it. So I just wanted to put that in the mix of other things that need to get done tonight. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments, please? I don't see anything in the chat. And so I think now I'm all set with my PowerPoint. I'm going to turn it over to you as a committee to talk about Rain's suggestion, which I thought was really important. How will we conduct these meetings? Again, as I said earlier, we do need a chairperson, a secretary. We want to establish some communication protocols so that everyone can participate. So if you all don't mind opening your picture and we can have an open discussion about how we want to handle this, I think that's warranted now. Like I said, I'm done with my PowerPoint, so I'll sit back and turn it over to you all. Feel free to open your pictures.
And we can switch interpreters.
Everyone should be able to open them now.
Very good. And Anne, okay, good. Great. So if you're in gallery, you can see everybody. The interpreter is also spotlighted. So Rain specifically talked about access for communication and communication protocol and procedure. So I want to clarify about the communication first, and then if we can move forward with the chairperson and secretary, and then your goals, your sense of what your plan will be for this next period of time, your future meetings. And I'm handing it over to you basically to give you all the floor, and it's in your hands. So thank you. And I'm sorry again about the PowerPoint. I do understand the point that you made about being embedded in the slides, and I will send the PowerPoints on to you, Rain, and I'm removing myself from the discussion so that you can talk freely. And
Raise your hand so we know. who-
sorry, thanks, Carol. So you just raise your hand so that we can identify you and so that people can follow who is speaking. All right. I know Rain brought up the first comment about communication, so that'd be good to move forward. So Rain is saying, I wanted to ask, especially for the deaf people first, I'd like to hear from you. What's your preference as far as communication? Because I have some visual issues, and that was why the PowerPoints were an issue for me, but I really want to hear from you. I prefer to use ASL to express myself as long as I'm clear and the deaf people can understand me. If not, I would use the interpreter. Let me know that. But I want to ask the deaf people, I'm not trying to call you out. I want to just give you the floor and center your opinions. I could continue to talk, Rain saying, Drew saying, no, I've got my hand up. Okay, so I'm very flexible about that. For me personally, I use ASL to express myself. I'm comfortable receiving information from you directly in ASL or to use the interpreter if people want to use English. If there's any issues and I need to ask for clarification, we also have the transcript from the cart, and so I can look down at the subtitles and check anything I've missed. I'm actually very flexible as long as I have access. And Ernest is saying, are there other issues? Yes, I see Amy. I feel like I agree with Drew pretty much. If somebody's signing for themselves or whatever they prefer, I'm fine with just moving along and understanding them. And Rain saying, I'd like to just say one example. Like, what could happen is when we're like this in a gallery and we can all see each other, sometimes people feel this is too small and we should only open our video when we are speaking, not when we're having the shared screen with the PowerPoints, but if I can open my video when I want to speak, but then we would close our video so that everybody's screen is, we're using the real estate better. I mean, if people are not going to say anything and they're just watching, they could turn off the videos, and that would make the videos that are there bigger for everybody. So I want to think about visual access and also how we want the layout to be using the real estate of the screen as best as possible. Amy? Well, one thing that I don't like with Zoom is that things move around and reset. So I don't know who's signing. That's an issue sometimes because I'm having to search. For it to be accessible to everyone, I like leaving the screens open. I like that idea. And Tina's saying that's fine with me as well. Bethany, you had your hand up?
So at the start of this meeting, I always try and ask what people would like for setup. Do you guys want spotlighting, or do you just solely want the gallery? Just so I know, I just want to know what preference is.
Drew saying, my experience with, and maybe I'm wrong with this, but if you are trying to see everybody in the gallery view, what happens is if you spotlight, then it changes it for people who are watching in the gallery. So if everybody is willing and comfortable to keep it the way it is now, we don't need to spotlight. We can all see each other pretty clearly, and we just leave it as is. And then we're also not moving the squares around so that it's confusing to people.
Perfect.
And Green is saying right on, that's exactly. what I'm thinking too. And Ernest is saying, okay, then we're not going to spotlight. Everybody can see each other. The squares are there. We're not, all the people who are signing are visible. That works well. Did anybody else want to add anything specifically about the communication? Thank you for bringing that up. Rain saying, I wanted to just say, the reason I brought this up is people have different perspectives about it. And for me personally, I like seeing everybody. I like seeing the gallery so I can get a temperature in the room. I can see how people are reacting. There are people that I know and people I don't know here. So if I'm only seeing the 1 or 2 speakers, that leaves me out of that. As far as moving forward with a vote, Ernest had said tonight we should have the chair and the secretary, the person taking the minutes. So I can talk on and on, I can, but I try not to. I like to hold back to make sure that other people have the floor and have time, because I'm very flexible. I don't need to have a position. I could have a position, but the only thing I know I cannot do is be a good secretary. You would not want my minutes. You do not want me to be secretary. So that's the one thing, but I don't mind any other position. If you want me to take a position, you want me to do something, or you don't want me to do something, just be open and tell me. I mean, if there's some specific role that somebody wants, but it feels like right now everybody's very flexible and very, being very gracious with each other. So Ernest is saying, yes, thank you, Rain, for mentioning that. And if there were somebody who's willing right now to be chair and secretary, I'd like to hear. I know, Rain, you do not want to be secretary. I'm saying you don't want me to be secretary, Rain's saying. Yes, I understand. So giving you all the floor. Amy.
Tina.
Oh, Tina. I would say Rain for chair. Amy's saying, yes, me too. Thumbs up. Drew is saying, yes. Rain, I think you volunteered yourself. Are you serious? No, I am serious. I'm meaning what I'm saying, Tina saying. Okay, so Ernest is saying, I'm hearing from 2 or 3 people that people are comfortable with Rain as chair. Is there any opposition or any issue? And Rain saying, is anybody else interested in that to begin with? People are laughing. Yes, we're laughing.
Why are you laughing?
I'm laughing at Tina's expression. That's what I'm laughing at, Amy saying. I certainly don't mind Rain saying, I'm willing and I can do the work. I just want to offer it to people. So if we could hear from the members for Rain to become chair, if you would vote aye, raise your hand. Or, okay, for Rain to be chair, I'm seeing hands up. 1, 2, just leave your hands up so I can count for official record. Anne, do you have your hand up? You're not really in the screen. I'm sorry. For Rain to be chair, Anne? I can't see which way. Your connectivity is not great. It's very difficult to see. I don't know. Are you comfortable with Rain being the chairperson? I see 6, but I can't tell what Anne's voting. And I don't know if there's a way for you to respond, either in the chat or by speech or sign. We can't tell what you're saying. And I know the screen isn't showing you very clearly, so we don't know. Okay, so there are 6, and so a majority rule. We have 1 person that we haven't been able to document because we don't know what the vote is. But with 6, it passes. I mean, I'd like to hear from Anne. Anne, are you saying yes? Are you voting yes, Rain would be chair of the ad hoc committee? Yeah, it's difficult because the screen is pixelated. Okay, then let's go with the 6 votes. And Rain will become chair then. And Anne, are you able to see me? I'd like to hear your vote. And Rain just sent you a message in the chat. I don't know if you can see that. The connectivity is very poor. So we don't know what you're actually able to hear or see.
I also sent her a chat and she did send me a chat back. So
Oh, all right. Did she put a vote in, or it looks like it's unanimous then? For Rain to be chair. Congratulations, Rain, on being the chair of the ad hoc committee. So the next item of business would be for us to appoint a secretary. And this would be to take minutes and to produce the agenda for the meeting following the rules that I had lined up before. So is there anyone who's interested or willing to be secretary? I can't be both, Rain is saying. Drew is saying you can't? All right, so I would help you, Rain saying, I will, I promise I will. I'll assist you with the agenda and all of that. So it won't be as hard. You won't be on your own.
Oh,
I'd be in trouble with my spouse if I say yes. I would get in trouble. She said, no, don't take anything on. Well, it's not long-term either. It's 6 months to a year. So Rain saying, what about rotating? Can we rotate that function so that everybody only has, let's say, a month or so? I'm wondering if that might work. So you're not having to make a huge decision taking on something now. Tina's got her hand up. She's saying, I'd be willing then to do it for one time for the next meeting on a rotating business basis, and then see from there, play it by ear and see if it works. If I feel like I can deal with that after the first time, but I'm fine with taking a temporary assignment. And okay, so I'd like to hear a vote for Tina to be a temporary secretary, temporary. And Tina's saying temporary. Hands up, please. If I could get a vote. Okay. I see. And Anne, this is for Tina to become secretary, at least temporarily. Are you saying yes? I think everyone else has said yes. It's very difficult. I know the internet isn't that good. So we're having a hard time even seeing you.
I think Tina has a question.
Tina's saying, so I can use the transcript. Is that correct? So that that'll help. Oh, I'm so happy with that. Oh yes, every secretary can access that. Anybody, we can always use that for in-house purposes, obviously, because anything you miss, you can look at it. But again, as I said in the PowerPoint, it is not for external use. The public cannot access it. No, I'm just talking about jotting down the minutes, using the transcript as a, reminder. Yes. Okay. So it looks like we voted in Tina as a temporary secretary. Congratulations, Tina. I know it's temporary, but congratulations on the position.
Don't tell Anna.
So this is great. We have a chair, we have a secretary for the ad hoc committee on interpreter referral services. So the next item would be
We can switch, Joan.
and I'll reduce my video.
So we want to talk about some ideas, some goals, some objectives for our next meeting. And we want to establish a date for that meeting. And I'm going to leave that to you. This is your chance. What would you guys like to talk about? We can have Tina take a few notes. We can have Rain lead this conversation. Think about a date for the next meeting as well as an agenda. Do you want to meet weekly, monthly? How often would you like to meet? So those are the kinds of things that you might want to talk about. And also for Zoom meetings, let us know. We'll set it all up for you. You don't have to worry about the Zoom link and all that. We'll take care of setting it up and getting that information to you so that you can log on. So what kinds of things, what kinds of goals do you have? What would you like to talk about in the meeting? What else was I gonna? Oh yeah, a time and date. And the agenda, what do you want to have on the agenda? And again, if you decide to add something to the agenda, that can't be done at the last minute. So the agenda is fairly fixed once you determine it. So I'll leave it to you, Rain, if you don't mind leading the conversation as the newly minted chair, and take it away. Okay. Before we pick a date for the next meeting, we might want to decide how often we'd like to meet. I don't think weekly is feasible. How about, that's way too much in my opinion. If we had 6 months and we know we can extend it, I would say, I'd propose, what about monthly? Then we would meet 6 times total. How does that sound to people? Tina's saying, how about every couple of weeks? What do you guys think? Other comments? Jen has a question. I know tonight's meeting is at night. So will we continue with night meetings? Is that the plan? Well, we can certainly talk about that. Okay. I'm just assuming, I think so. Well, I don't know. I'm guessing because people work during the day, I'm making an assumption about that, but I'm happy to ask everyone. For me, I'm going, Thursday nights won't work for me. Any other night is absolutely fine. Drew? I understand we want to make sure to meet enough, and we want to have enough time in between to do any kind of data gathering, thinking, writing that's necessary. Maybe like creating a flow chart. I guess that helps us all have this be on the same page. What if we say 3 weeks? For example, we will get the policy, we'll have a chance to read it over, we'll understand and know all the things that we need to know. And then we'll know where do we invest our time and energy. So I would suggest 3 weeks. Trying to figure out when that would be, but that would give us more than 6 meetings. Yeah. Okay, that's a nice compromise. Tina? Does it always have to be the same night and the same time? I'm thinking like right now, 3 weeks from now, no problem. It gives us time to read everything and be prepared. And then we get together in 3 weeks, and then maybe we decide to have more of breakout discussions or break into work groups. Well, I know we can't really break out, but we could focus on specific things and we can assign specific tasks to individuals. That might be, I don't know if that means like it takes a few more meetings in the beginning. I'm thinking 3 weeks does sound like a good proposal. For Ernest, I'm asking you, so we have the members, do we have a minimum number of members that have to be there for a meeting to actually happen? Yes, 7. we prefer to have everyone show up. If a couple of people can't show up, we just document that folks are absent. There's no minimum in order to run a meeting. The Board of Commissioners, that's a different story. We have to have a minimum of 5, but no, this is an ad hoc committee. There is no minimum. The important thing is that we document who showed up and who did not. And that way, it informs the public of, once decisions are made, you know, who decided what. And also, it's not required that you show up. There's no punishment if you can't make it. Tina, your recent comment about having it always be on the same night. I have a couple of thoughts on that. Yeah, we could always talk about each meeting at the previous meeting. At the same time, for some people, it's just a little bit easier if they set the time and keep it that way. So they're debatable, you know, which is better. I think it's always worth talking about whether we're going to keep it on the same night of the week or we're going to make it more flexible. I think it's important to pick a date, but at the same time, we could use the doodle poll, which I really like. I know you like it too. And that way, it's just, you know, it's an easier way to set a meeting. So we don't even necessarily have to pick a date tonight. We could find out for people, what is their best day? For me personally, I like to look at my calendar and look ahead and see what the options are. Jen is saying, yeah, I agree. I feel the same way. And so does Tina. So that might be the best idea. We can plan for 3 weeks and people can answer the poll. I'll set that up with first choice, second choice, and so forth. And then what's not going to work for people. And then we can go from there. We want to make sure that we get most people able to attend. If nothing works, then we'll need to talk about that and be flexible until we get it set. And hopefully that'll happen. So why don't we go with 3 weeks? I like that. I'd like to read over all the policies and get organized and know what I'm doing. So great. It sounds like people are okay with that. Now, agenda for our next meeting. Just checking the time. We're done at 8, right? Yes, 8 o'clock. Okay, for the agenda. I didn't watch the PowerPoint, as I said earlier. The commission gave us some items to accomplish. I feel like I need to see what those are to start, but I'm curious if folks here have something they'd like to start with, something like that, like to prioritize, or any examples. Drew. It's going to become clear that I talk a lot too. You are not alone, Rain. I think if we identify what the concerns are, I know that some of us have a basic idea, but I think we need to really identify what are the real issues. Ernest mentioned there's no clear grievance process, and we want to clarify the referral process itself so people understand it, how it works. We want to have a better understanding of what the issues are. Maybe we have some thoughts from personal experience or things that we've heard that we can bring to the table. So, those are my comments. I put down identify concerns that we're all going to talk about, and we can maybe even categorize them. Now that we know kind of generally, what else do people want to talk about? I have one. It's simple. The name of this ad hoc committee is called the Ad Hoc Committee. I think it should include Ad Hoc Interpreter Referral Committee. So it's more descriptive. So I propose that we put that on the agenda to change the name for OMA purposes. So that was an easy one. We don't have to debate that. I think that's pretty much self-explanatory. And that'll be ready for the OMA to meet those requirements. What if we think about what we want to add to the agenda, things that we'd like to come up with. And everyone could send an email to me by this week or during the next week, once you've had a chance to think about. And so we'll give you a due date and you'll have time to read through the documents, think about them. Would that be helpful to you to have a little more time? Jen? I'm assuming for the agenda, can we have some broad terminology like new business, old business? Sure, yeah. Obviously, we'll be discussing or reviewing the concerns that the community has. So that would be an item. Reviewing policies and procedures. Those are two that we know will be on the agenda. And we can keep it general, whatever we really want to talk about. That way we have some flexibility on the agenda. And then Ernest will be satisfied and we'll have our agenda turned in on time. Right, well, we don't have any old business, so that, yeah, but we will have it, but we don't have it yet. Okay. Tina. Please learn my name sign. Hey, I've been online all day. Give me a break. Oh, poor you. Brain. Anyway. USCED, that computer system for scheduling interpreters for the referral service. I'd like to put that on the agenda just to make sure that if Holly explains how it's used now, or which part are we using, which part are we not using? Oh, also, well, so why don't we say review USCED? Let's keep it broad. That way we don't, we're not locking ourselves into a specific discussion. So review USCED. And I know Holly's been sending out jobs on USCED, so we could talk about those. Is that okay with people? What else, folks? I don't see anything. I think those three, hello, this is Jen. I think those three items are really a good start because they're general enough. I mean, policies and procedures, community concerns, and the scheduling system. I think that's plenty. That'll take up 2 hours easily. I agree. And I think that maybe we can categorize them, like you said, identify concerns with each of those three areas. That's going to take up 2 hours. We'll use our time wisely. Yes. Sorry, Drew, go ahead. What's your name sign again? I'm so sorry. Drew. Some people spell it, some people sign it. Okay. Ernest, you mentioned that as executive director, you would be there as an ex officio member. And Holly, I believe, I don't want to put you on the spot, Holly, but I'm curious if you have questions for clarifications about policies and procedures. If we have questions, are we allowed to address them? And are you allowed to answer them so that we make sure we understand? Is that okay? Okay, great, awesome. Thank you, Holly. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, Jen. If we go back to review Ernest's PowerPoint, I was just wondering if we had ideas. It seems, Ernest, you offered some guidelines. If we come up with some ideas that are really not part of your guidelines, do we have to follow your guidelines? Or do we have some freedom to diverge? I was wondering about that. The commission will be voting on whether they accept or don't accept our recommendations. We can always make recommendations of, whatever we want, really. It's up to the commissioners to review those recommendations and determine whether or not to accept them. So really, what Ernest told us, that's where the commissioners are seeking guidance. That's where they are asking for help. But we're not limited to that. That's my understanding. And Ernest says, you're absolutely right. So a little bit related to that, I'm asking you guys, I'm curious how you feel about this. RIRID and some community members did actually meet with Ernest and the commissioners before. And they did identify some concerns. RIRID mentioned those in a larger public meeting. They were on hold because then we started this notion of having an ad hoc committee. But they were identified and written down. And there were some recommendations based on the general feeling in the community. And I was one of the community members there. There were deaf people and hearing people, and RIRID. No, not RIRID. I hate spelling that. Hurts my fingers. Anyway, they came up with questions and ideas, and Ernest does have those. We haven't done anything about them. So I want to ask you, do you feel like we would benefit from having those notes from those meetings to review and see if there's anything there that we should be looking at or not? Because it's kind of already been started. Tina says yes, as does Drew, as does Talia and Jen. Yeah, oh, sure. Why reinvent the wheel if we've already put these ideas out there? Let's just do it. That's a great suggestion. Okay, so we'll, as long as nobody objects, we'll go ahead and do that. And we'll bring that to our next meeting. And we'll all look at those things together. We'll look at the concerns. We'll see if we have some, if maybe it will be helpful to organize those and come up with some ideas or solutions. Maybe some things have already been decided. So I'm good with that, if you are. It's not a document like a policy or procedure. It's just a series of recommendations about how things can be improved or established. A process, having a process put in place. Borrowed from standards, help me out with those words, standard practices. Okay.
Carol, we can switch off.
Oh, sounds good.
We can end early, Ray's saying also. Drew's saying, I just want to get a sense, this is the first time we're all together. And does everyone here use the interpreter referral service, either as an interpreter, providing interpreting services, or as a consumer? I think it'd be good to know a little bit more about our experiences with the interpreter referral service. I mean, I use it as a consumer, obviously. So if I have an appointment or something, I would make a request. I would tell my provider that they need to make a request, and they make the request, and then I go there and there's an interpreter. Tina, I'm making fun of your name, Tina. So I use the interpreter referral service as an interpreter. And I've been doing so for the 6 years that I've been here. That's how I get my assignments. And it's possible that maybe a third or a half, even if my work comes from the Rhode Island Commission for the Deaf referral. Amy's saying, I use it both as a consumer, but also I work with the victim advocates. And so a lot of times I'm requesting as well. And that's a different experience, trying to teach people out in the community, advocating for using interpreters, making requests for interpreters. And if they need a deaf interpreter, and explaining why they need a deaf interpreter. So there's a lot of that. I actually have two perspectives. Okay, did anybody else? Jen, did you have something you were saying? Anyone else? Talia? Yes, Talia. You use it for yourself. Okay, yes, great. Do you have a sign name, Talia? Okay, great, Talia. Well, that's really funny, Tina. We're going to have a Tina Talia. Okay. And we should invite Tim to this meeting, and then we'd have Tim, Tina, Talia. They'd be all T's on the face. Yeah, that would be great. Jen, did you have something? Yes. Well, Jen is saying, obviously, I mean, I've interpreted for the Rhode Island Commission for the Deaf, and as a partners interpreting, co-founder, I've used referral as well. So that's great. And
They partner with partners.
we partner, we partner with PI, and it's so difficult. We don't know, because of your internet connectivity, it's hard to know what your relationship with the commission's referral services. If you want to chat, you can chat to everyone. If you typed it in the chat, we'd all be able to see it. Because we don't have other options right now. We can't see what you're signing, but if you want to type your response in the chat. We'll give you a minute just to make sure to see if you're doing that. So for me, I've used it as an interpreter. I don't know if I've used it. I'm trying to think. Rhode Island, other states I've done requests, but here Ann is making a suggestion. I don't have any suggestions. Perfect. Thank you for putting that in, Ann. I appreciate it. No suggestions at this time. Good. So with the Rhode Island, I have not been using it as a requester, but other states I have. So, okay, good. Any other comments? Drew, did you have more about that, or you just wanted to get a sense? No, for me, I just wanted to know what people's experiences were as far as bringing items to the table, what they're coming in with, their perspective, from the community. This is part of like my own personal experience that I'm bringing to the committee as well. And we'll have an ongoing discussion as we meet. We'll check in again, because that could be helpful. If somebody has experienced a certain aspect of the interpreter referral, we can get a sense of how that impacts, what you think about things, if you're looking at it from an interpreter perspective or a requester perspective or a consumer. It'd be good, I think, especially for people who are using it as a consumer. It's really good to have that in the forefront of our minds. If there's any other questions or discussion tonight, I'm happy to hear it. Jen, yes? I hate to be the last person to raise my hand, but I wanted to say, Ernest, you have information about other states in New England. Do you have, like, who has interpreter referral service, like Vermont, MCDHH, Massachusetts, New Hampshire interpreter referral? And I'm wondering if there's, I don't know if we're comparing, but just at least being able to review their services as models, and whether it's something that would help, maybe not at our next meeting, but in the future, if we had more information about other services in the region that have interpreter referral. Yes, I can certainly provide that. Great. And I did want to say, I'll send out an email to the group with the, obviously it'll start with Tina being the secretary,
With the minutes from Tina.
with the minutes. And people can add, I mean, right now, what is today? It's Thursday. Oh my gosh, I thought it was Friday for a moment. I'm like, hey, it's Friday. Happy weekend. No, it's Thursday. So this coming weekend, maybe we could put some ideas into the agenda and we'll kind of have a closing, a deadline for when you can add items to the agenda, and Tina can collect those and then produce them. I think that's a really good start. Is there any last points? Yes, Drew. I just want to throw out, if we could have like a Google group or something like that. Something, that so that we're not CCing your email. We could make sure that everybody's in that group, just so that we could forward the email addresses, and then we could all be communicating with each other. Yes, I'd like to be able to start a new chain. Thank you for suggesting that, because we've all been responding to one, but I'd like to start with another one. Great. Yes, Ernest. Yes, before we wrap up tonight, I just wanted to ask, I'm going to email the PowerPoints out, the policies and procedures, both the old ones and the new ones that we're discussing now about the information that came to us from RID and RIAD at the last meeting that we had with them. And also Drew's question, Jen's question about New England and other referral services, try to get some information. Rain also mentioned a community forum, the concerns that RIRID, yes, Ernest just mentioned that, RIAD and RIRID. Oh, you did just mention it? Yes. He said the documents that I knew what he meant, because I could kind of read his mind, but yeah, he said it pretty fast, but yes. Yep. So the first thing will be the policies and procedures, the current ones. And then the document that we collected from RID and RIAD about ideas to improve interpreter referral. And then the other one was the PowerPoints from tonight. And the fourth was regional other states that have interpreter referral. If we have the first three things and we don't have the fourth, I would like to get them sent out right away so that we have more time to look at them. Don't hold off until you get more information about referral services, regional wide. Then we can look at those as we get more information from Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. We can share that later, send that on later, but don't hold off on sending it so that we have those first three items. I think we're good. Drew is saying, yep. And I will send a doodle poll. My hands have given out for the night. So I've been signing all day, and now they're just jello. But I will send a doodle poll out to you all to set the next meeting date. That's it. Great. Yay. Yay. All right. Good night. Woohoo. Good night. Thank you so much, Ernest is saying. Thanks so much for your time.